Hey everyone, I'm Ben Eubanks, Chief Research Officer for Lighthouse Research and Advisory, and I'm really excited to kick off this session here with Keith Hewlin from SmartRank. We're talking about the kinds of data that really revolutionize and change and improve, frankly, the hiring manager relationships that many of us have as talent acquisition leaders. Right? One of the challenges we have is we always feel like we're kind of putting heads on things, or it's this word versus that word, my opinions and perspectives and everything else. And all those things have value, but the thing that's most important here, the thing that sets a level playing field, that sets a foundation we can all go forward on, is data. So if we can create some information, we can gather some data, we can have something to talk about, that allows us to stop talking at each other and stop talking together about what we need to tackle. And in this case, having some data makes every hiring conversation, whether it's on a macro level or a micro level, more actionable. It makes it more objective. And Keith, I'm so excited because you actually have a really good perspective on doing this, and the way that you help your clients do this, I think, is pretty incredible. So what's your thought on this? How does data play a part? And yeah, take it from there.
Yeah. So I've been a hiring manager for over 20 years, and I can tell you that data is probably the last thing that ever gets brought to the table. And I'll say this, that because this is really important. Most of the conversations between hiring managers and recruiters end up being anecdotal conversations. And anecdotal conversations lead to assumptions and opinions. I'll just say that again. Anecdotal conversation lead to assumptions and opinions. They walk in and the recruiter says, hey, we're having problems finding this or whatever. There's all kinds of things going on in the hiring manager's mind about what that means, right? They're thinking, well, did you look at all the applicants? Where are you looking for these applicants? Do you really understand what I'm looking for? All these things start to come up. Data-driven conversations, on the other hand, lead to productive conversations, discussions. They create accountability for everybody, and they help drive faster and better decisions overall. Because we don't have to guess about things anymore. We don't have to play off of assumptions and opinions. We have information, we have data in front of us to help drive those decisions. And like I said, on the accountability side, that's a huge piece because it holds everybody accountable. I, as a hiring manager, I'm going to think I'm right. But if you walk back in as a recruiter with data at your fingertips, you fundamentally change that conversation between the recruiter and the hiring manager. You fundamentally change it because you're not coming in with Ben's opinions. You're coming in with the data that the system generated based off of your information, hiring manager, based off of your requirements, based off of what the applicant said. This has nothing to do with Ben. This has to do with everything that the system shows us exactly what the data, is really trying to tell us here.
So I know that as a talent leader, I've spent a lot of time pulling information and sharing those things, but sometimes the things we share aren't actually that helpful or relevant to the conversation. So what kind of data is most useful if you're sitting there representing the hiring manager, we're bringing something, what is going to help make that conversation really, really tangible, really actionable at the end of the day?
Well, there's a lot, right? I mean, first, it needs to be some sort of data, right? It has to be some information, percentages, numbers, whatever that might be. And these are things like they need to know things about like the qualifications of the applicants. If a recruiter walks back in and says, hey, it's really difficult to find somebody that has this level of proficiency you're looking for in Python, that conversation is just not going to go well because that hiring manager is like, well, this is your job. This is what you're supposed to be doing. If they walk back in and they say, only 20% of the people we're looking for actually have this level of proficiency, that's a completely different conversation, right? That fundamentally changes it. But the problem is that, again, talent acquisition teams are still using the exact same tools they've been using for 20 years. They're using resumes, they use job descriptions, and they use applicant tracking systems. Traditional applicant tracking systems are notoriously bad at being able to have any type of data. And these are not my words, these are words of TA leaders and recruiters I've talked to. They're resume repositories. So, what data can you pull? You can do a Boolean search in some of these and pull out keywords on a resume. That's not data. That's not data. Data is coming back and telling you, we looked at 100% of these applicants, and of the 100%, only 12 of these applicants actually meet the criteria that you're looking for. Now that fundamentally changes it. So, let me give you an example. And I'll just kind of use our application as an example. Our application can do a number of things. One of the things that it can do is it gives you exact percentages for the qualification matches for every hiring manager for the positions they're hiring for. So if you had 100 applicants that applied, and let's say your top applicant of 100 happened to be a 19% match. And keep in mind, that's a 19% match to exactly what the hiring manager said they are looking for, exactly what they said with specific questions and answers. And all applicants answered that, but the top score is 19%. When you walk back into that conversation, that's a very different conversation, because what it shows you is it says, look, hiring manager, the top qualified person is 19%. So that means that you've got some really, stiff criteria that you're looking for. So we have a few options, right? We don't have to argue about, am I looking at the right people? Am I looking at the full thing? This is 100% of the applicants. So we don't need to argue about that. But you have some decisions to make now. You can either hire that person knowing they're a 19%. You can hold on your criteria and just know that this is probably going to take longer, okay? Because if you're looking for somebody that's a 92%, then this is just going to take longer, because out of 100 people so far, the highest is a 19%. Or the third option is you can change your criteria, loosen it up a little bit, and we'll probably find more people that are going to be a good fit for this. But now they can look at, well, what specific questions and answers are we actually asking them for? And where are we losing those applicants? Like, they're good on questions 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's 9. We're losing like half of these people right there, because none of these people have this type of skill set that you're looking for.
I really love that example, because as you said, so many of those times, we can't find anybody for all those requirements. You put too many must-haves, too many required skills or experiences, whatever else on the resume or on the job requirements. And hiring manager says, prove it. How do you know? And like, well, it's hard to find them. That's not an answer, really. In this case, it's, I've looked at every single applicant that came through. Here's what the actual data show on that, and that makes it really tangible. As I said earlier, this makes it actionable too. You just laid out 3 clear paths for what to do next. It's not an argument anymore. It's just, hey, here's the facts, and now I'm coming back to you as the leader of this position as we're hiring, right? Which direction do you want to take this? Because I'll happily support any of those, but I need to know which direction you want to go. And then there's less arguing back and forth, or I told you I wanted to know, we're together on this. We're working together on it.
That feedback loop today is not a fun feedback loop. It's like, do you like these resumes? No, I don't like these resumes. Okay, well, what do you not like about them? That is a feedback loop. If you even want to call it that, I wouldn't even call it that. I would call it an argument trying to understand what the qualifications are again and again and again. So a feedback loop, though, here comes back again with data in the hand. Now you can start moving forward. You're not replaying third down over and over and over and over and over again. You're moving the ball down the field, right? And that's the fundamental difference that data provides.
One of the other examples I've heard you give before that I really think is interesting is the one around salary requirements. Would you share that one? Because I think that one's going to resonate with a lot of people here.
Yeah, because everyone's had this conversation. If you're a recruiter or a hiring manager, you've all been involved in this. Yes. So here's the way that this one goes. You're a recruiter, you walk in, you say, hiring manager, what are the salary requirements for this? And the hiring manager says 60 to 70K is what we're looking at. And the recruiter goes, ooh, that seems really low. I think it's going to be tough to find people. And the hiring manager says, well, no, I think you can find people. If you look hard enough, you'll find them. Look, the best person I ever had for this role 10 years ago took that salary. They took 65, and they were one of the best people I ever had in that role. And you're like, okay, here we go with some bias creeping in. Great. Okay. So then the recruiter goes off and they start trying to find people. And guess what? They're right. They're finding it really hard to find people that are falling within, the 60 to 70K for the qualifications that they're looking for. So they walk back in with an anecdotal conversation and say, hey, remember when I told you that, this was going to be tough to find? Turns out it is. And we're really finding it hard to find people in the 60 to 70K. Now come in the assumptions. Now come in the opinions. Now the hiring manager is going to be thinking to themselves, again, do you know what we're looking for? Like, how many people did you really talk to? Did you really ask them about salary, or were you too afraid to test the waters there? Like, that's what's happening. Yeah. That is what's happening in the hiring manager's mind. So now let's talk about that. You walk back into that same conversation with a data-driven conversation. You walk back in and you say, Okay. So here we just asked 100% of the applicants. We use this tool called SmartRank, and we're able to ask 100% of the applicants this exact question. So we gave them some salary ranges, 60 to 70, 71 to 80, 81 to 90, and 91 to 100, and 100 plus, right? And so here's what the data tells us, okay? Only 6% of the applicants are willing to accept this 60 to 70K. Now, hiring manager, what does that tell us? That tells us that of the full applicant pool, 94%, we need to basically just move over to the side. And now we're dealing with only 6% of this applicant pool to look at and find your perfect qualified person. And by the way, would you like to know how many of those, because of SmartRank, we can also tell you, would you like to know how many of those are actually a 50% or greater qualification to what you're looking for? None of them so far. So again, we have a few options. One, we can just keep the salary here and we can deal with 6%, and you can hire people that are below 50% of the qualifications you're looking for. Two, we can just wait and we can hold out and hope that we're going to find an 80 or 90%, but I just want to set the right expectations. You're going to be waiting a while. And a third option is we can look at changing the salary. And as you can see in these other bands down here, this is what people are really asking for this role. I don't care what our compensation committee says that this role is going to be, and I don't care what I'm telling you what the applicants are telling us consistently across the board is what they want. And the hiring manager may even say something like, well, it's not even my call. Fine. You and me, let's work together and let's go to our bosses and let's say, look, this isn't Keith's opinion. This isn't Ben's opinion. This is the data that shows us that if we do this, then this is what's going to be the repercussions of that. So just set expectations across the board for everybody then. Leadership, VP of sales, not going to be able to hire this person at 60 to 70K, or it's going to take us a really long time. Do you want it to take a shorter time? And do you want the most qualified people? Or do you want to stick to this 60 or 70K? I want to stick to the 60 or 70. Okay, well, at least everybody's on the same page now.
Yes. Absolutely. In my head, I'm thinking about how I would approach that as a recruiter. And I'm probably been like, hey, by the way, the first qualified applicant over 50% shows up when we cross that 80K threshold for pay, right? So just being able to say, here's to give you some more ideas on which of this alternate paths is going to be best for us. Here's where it's going to have to be likely, at least to start considering people who are going to meet the bulk of the criteria you're setting for this position. So there's so many different ways. I love these examples because, as you said, every one of us who's recruited, who's hired for a position has had these conversations, and 99% of the time it's, well, I don't feel like, or I'm not sure about it. It's all these other things that are completely, at the end of the day, irrelevant. How we feel about it, whether we think it's a good decision, whether it worked before or not, all those things don't really matter right now. What matters is, here's what the facts say. We need to use those to make our next decision.
That's right.
Goodness, this has been so helpful. I appreciate your insight on this, Keith, and I love that you're helping your customers solve this problem, because it's one that all of us know is a big one. So thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the time. This was fun.